Research should not be done for acquiring any academic degree or for gaining financial benefits. These should be the tangible outcomes of the research. Research approach or design to desire to know, learn, understand more should be the way of life. This approach gives us a track to inquire about the right information around us. It develops an attitude not to believe in everything so easily. It sharpens the brain and gives it a judicious vision to look all around. It leads us to the ultimate philosophy of all the subjects and builds a graphic vision of life. It empowers us with knowledge and efficient learning of the new things. It helps us in understanding various issues of life more greatly. It also evolves us to mark out the thin line between what is truth and what is lie. It makes good habit of reading, analyzing, thinking and learning. You can experience it even if you are doing our daily activities. You can see that if this research attitude is acquired, you can see in your daily activities. But now how this approach or attitude can be acquired? For that, you need to read more and more and follow your interest, browse new information from the authentic sources, generate new ideas by own. Do not really rely every time on Google and keep on asking questions, whether the questions are meaningful or dumb, but keep asking the questions. With this, you can adopt this approach as a part of everyday life or daily activities and you will experience the difference. With this thought in the mind, let us proceed. Before starting today's session, let us take a review of last session. In the last session, we have covered what is meant by research problem, the purpose of research problem, how to select the research problem. Also, we covered how to narrow down the research problem when we are writing the research paper. Subsequently, we talk about dividing the research problem into sub problems. After that, we discuss what research question is and how it is different from the research problem, along with the characteristics of the good research question. Finally, we talk about research methodology and the plan. Based on this session, a quiz was circulated for 10 marks. Even after extending the deadline of the quiz, 51 participants have completed the quiz. This number is lesser than the first week's quiz. So do not miss the quiz or assignment. It may affect your grades later. Apart from that, assignment 2 was also given. We found that very few people have submitted the assignment 2. The questions for the assignment 2 were as follows. Identify three potential research problems of the interest in your field. Last time we have discussed how to identify the research problems. Actually, there are different ways of getting the research problem, and one of the ways was to get the research problem through the survey paper. So last time we discussed one survey paper, and out of that we selected or we identified 3 research problems. So it is expected that you should also identify some research problems. Right. Second question was write possible research questions for each of the above. Research question, it is an interrogative statement for the research problem, and then briefly write the research plan for anyone's research question mentioned above. So whatever research question you consider, for that you need to write a research plan. So research plan should include research objective, brief background, research problem, what methodologies are required, what basic knowledge is required, what is the expected time for completion of this problem, and what is the expected cost, what are the expected benefits or the outcomes that should be listed out in the research plan. In short, we can call research plan as the synopsis, one page synopsis. It should not be extensive at this stage, but it is expected that you should write one page synopsis or the research plan for your project or the problem. So this was discussed in the last session, but still very few people have submitted the assignment. I expect that those who have not completed the assignment will complete the assignment by tomorrow. We have extended the deadline for the assignment, and henceforth we will be keeping the same deadline for all the assignment as Monday midnight. So in weeks times by Monday midnight. And also for the quiz, we will be keeping the deadline as same. After the session, you can attempt the quiz and it will be up to Monday evening 8 p.m. You can submit the quiz. So remember this, for today's quiz also, it will start after this session and you can attempt it or submit answers by tomorrow 8 p.m. So it will not be extended again further. In case of any query while submitting your assignment, do not hesitate to call us or contact us. We will help you. So moving next, the learning outcomes for today's session. Let us discuss. The following are the learning outcomes for today's session. At the end of this session, you will be able to select an appropriate and meaningful title of the paper. Today's our discussion will restrict only to the title, author and author details, and introduction. Some part of the introduction we will cover in the next session, but the maximum part we will try to cover in this session. You will also be able to recognize whose name is to be included as an author for the manuscript and whose name is to be included in the acknowledgement section. Apart from that, you will also be able to decide the author sequence and write their addresses and other details or affiliations. Finally, you will be able to structure the introduction part of the manuscript. So these are the learning outcomes. Please be with me to learn all these things. Moving ahead, this is an outline of today's presentation. Here in this session of week 3, I will present the meaning of scientific research paper and the typical structure of scientific research paper at the beginning. Although this has been discussed in the week 1 session, we will revisit it more specifically. After that, we will see how to select the expressive title for the paper. Even though this activity of writing or deciding the title is carried out in the end, we will do it at the start because there has to be some idea and plan for the work in author's mind, and this title will be the guideline for that. So this title can further be changed and refined at the time of paper submission to the journal, depending upon the content of the manuscript. Therefore, we will talk about thereafter we will talk about the authorship and contributorship. Many times there is a confusion about writing the names of authors. This confusion will be cleared in this session. In the end, we will spend more time on understanding the structure of introduction part of the paper. Then we will learn how to write it more attractively and innovatively. It will be illustrated with example. So let us start. I request all the participants to mute themselves. There should not be any problem to others, those who are listening. So thank you. So first slide for today's discussion is scientific research paper. As I said in my earlier sessions, research refers to the systematic and critical evaluation of the research question about the presumed relation of an observed phenomenon. Whereas a scientific research paper is a written and published report describing the results of scientific research. Research work is meaningful only when it becomes widely known to the scientific community. The results of the unpublished scientific research paper are known only to the researcher and his peers or colleagues. Publication of a research work in a scientific journal results in the dissemination of knowledge and enables a larger audience to become aware of scientific work. That's why it is very important to define the research paper. It is defined in the following ways. A written and published report describing the original research results. This is the definition given by Robert Day in his book on how to write and publish scientific paper. However, it must be written in a certain way, because you can see that I have highlighted two words, written and published. A written and published report describing the original research results. So written, it must be written in certain way and must be published in certain way as defined by editorial practice, scientific ethics, and printing and publishing procedures. The second definition, the research paper is also defined as the culmination and the final product of an involved process of research, critical thinking, evaluation, organization, and composition. This definition talks about the process of writing a research paper. So what is involved in the process of writing research paper is communicated through this definition. Academic papers, also called as scholarly papers, which is published in the academic journals and contains original research results or reviews existing results or shows a new invention, is also called a scientific research paper. Further, an important point I would like to state here is of valid publication or a referred publication or peer reviewed journal publication. If the research paper is having a very good research contribution, novel work, innovative research which nobody has done earlier, but if it is published at a wrong place, if it is published in a paid journal, if it is published in a commercial journal, it cannot be called as validly published. On the other hand, if a poor research results are published or accepted in a peer-reviewed journal, it can be called as valid publication. The valid publication refers to as a primary literature source. Valid publication refers to as a primary literature source. If a primary and secondary literature sources are to be segregated, distinguished, then we can call original articles or documents, raw material or the first-hand information, historical or legal documents, results of the experiments, statistical data as the primary source. Primary source means the primary source includes original articles or documents, raw materials or the first-hand information, first reports, historical and legal documents, results of the actual experimentation, statistical data are the sources of, are called as the primary sources of information. And something written about these primary sources like comments on and interpretations of, discussions about the original material can be categorized as secondary sources, which are not directly related to the original research, but those are the discussions on the original research. These are called as the secondary sources. This way we can distinguish primary sources and secondary sources. So finally, a scientific research paper, that is the point of discussion in this slide, can be defined in these three different ways as presented in the slide. Then moving ahead, let us see the organization of the scientific research paper. In this slide, we will briefly discuss the typical structure of the scientific research paper. In this session and upcoming sessions, we will cover each and every part in detail. Here we will just revisit it and understand it. So first we have a title. It is the fewest possible words that adequately describe the content of the research paper. Then we have to write author or authors, contributing authors and their affiliations, We need to understand whose name to be considered as an author and what should be the sequence of authors. Later we have abstract. It is a one paragraph summary of the whole paper, almost 200 words or 150 words, generally prescribed by the journal. It is the primary means of finding research publication in a certain subject. After that, we have to list out keywords. These are the important words in the paper. These are generally given by the journal or publisher. After that, we have introduction. The introduction is the first component of the research paper after the title and abstract. It is usually brief and communicates precisely the scope of paper. That is, what was the rationale or foundation or basis and the aim of the study. It should describe the background, the available base for knowledge, significance and aims. It should clearly define or describe what research questions, hypotheses being tested and respectively. After that, we have main body or main part of the or main contribution of the paper. Whether a study carried out in the paper is valid or not is judged by the methodology used in the paper. The methodology section should be described with such a details and clarity that it will help others to investigate and replicate the work in the same manner. It includes who or what was examined, what was involved in the research process, what instruments were used in the experimentation or analysis, how subjects were manipulated to answer the experimental question, how measurements and calculations and how the data were manipulated and analyzed. The methodology section should always be written in the past tense and should be presented in a logical or orderly manner. Then we have results and discussions. The results section is the easiest section to write. One has to describe the findings of the observation in the section. Usually the result section consists of three components: text, tables and graphs. The text should be used to convey unique information and highlight the most important aspect of figures and tables so that the unnecessary duplication of the data presented in the tables and figures is avoided in the text. Because sometimes we represent same data in the form of text, in the form of table or in the form of figure. This duplication of the data should be avoided. Only the important observations need to be emphasized or summarized. Some data need not be, the same data need not be presented in the form of tables and figures. When reporting values, report the value in the international or system or SI units. Results should be presented in a simple, logical and orderly fashion to meet the objectives of the research project or research paper. The discussion section is one of the most difficult section to write. I said when we are writing results and discussion part, I said result is the easiest part to write, whereas discussion is the difficult part to write. Because discussion is the interpretation on the data. So discussion section is one of the most difficult sections to write in the manuscript. The discussion provides value to the paper and compare the work of the author with other scientists. The discussion should deal with the interpretation of the results without repeating information that has already been presented under the result section. The discussion should review how the study, observation, add the current scientific literature, offer explanation for the findings, compare the study findings with other literature, and discuss limitations. Discussion usually ends with the summary statements. After that we have conclusion. It is the overall conclusion about the paper. Directions for the future work can also be pointed out in the conclusion part. After that we have references, papers referred, studied to construct this main paper, your own paper, are listed in the references. We need to ensure that all the papers listed in the references are cited and all cited papers in the manuscript are listed in the references. That should match. After that, acknowledgements, saying thanks to funding agencies and colleagues, scientists, technicians that might have provided some assistance to you while carrying out some experiments. Later, appendix. This can include methods, analysis, experiments, additional data, mathematical derivations, designs, etc., which are not included in the main body of the paper. If the paper is mathematical, involving lots to give separately notations and symbols with subscripts and superscripts used in the manuscript. And finally, we have a biography, that is academic biography, which provides the brief introduction of the author with the academic qualification, previous posts, a summary of publication or professional affiliations. I can show you here a paper. Just a moment. This is a paper published by elsewhere in the journal Electric Power System Research. You can see this has a title, authors, author affiliations, then abstract. This is the abstract.
Sir, not visible.
Not visible.
Sir, screen is visible.
Paper is not visible.
Now
it is visible.
Okay, so this is the title of journal Electric Power System Research, published by elsewhere. This is the title of paper. Authors are listed here. These are the affiliations of the author. After that, we have the abstract. This is article information, when the article was submitted to the journal, when it was revised, and when it was accepted. These are the keywords, important words in the paper. This is introduction part. Here this star mark is indicated. Star mark indicates the corresponding author. What is the meaning of corresponding author, that we will see in next part of our discussion. These are the mailing addresses. Here you can see the structure of paper. Section 1 is introduction. Section 2 is review along with generalization of methods for voltage sag source relative location. Section 3, novel method. Here the main contribution or the main part of the paper is described. Main body of the paper. Fourth is performance evaluation, that is experimental setup. What is this, how this is carried out. Result section. Then we have a discussion section, section 5. Then there is a conclusion, acknowledgement and references. I will not go through this paper, but I will just indicate the structure of the paper. So this is the structure of the paper. That is what we have discussed now. Okay, so this is the organization of the scientific paper. Now let us move to the next part, that is paper title. So after touching each and every component of the research paper, we will elaborate these components. So let us start with the title of the manuscript. So what is title? Let us see how to select the title of the paper. First of all, let us see what is title. Title is the key part of the article which should be designed to engage the reader's attention at first sight. It is the fewest possible words that adequately describe the content of the paper. It must be understood that the paper title, the title of the paper is a label. Title of the paper is a label. Yes. Hello.
So screen is not visible.
Screen is not visible. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it must be understood that the title of the paper is actually the label of paper. It is not the sentence, because in the sentence we have subject, verb, object arrangement. But here in the title we don't have subject, verb and object. So it is not a sentence. It is just a label. It is really simpler than a sentence, but the order of the words is more important. The order of the words in the title is more important. If the order of the words is not proper, the complete meaning of the paper will be different. So the attention must be given to the proper syntax. So title is the key part of the article which should be designed to engage the reader's attention at the first sight. And it is the fewest possible words that adequately describe the content of the paper. Now, what is the importance of the title? Why title is so important? The title of the paper is very important part of the paper in many ways. The title is the first part of the research paper which the editor reads. When you send your paper for any journal, for conference, title is the part which is read for the first time. Researchers often struggle to write good titles for their research. So generally there is a problem. What should be the title for the paper? We are not able to decide it. They spend more time on writing the main part of the paper, including method, results and discussion, all that, but they spend very less time and thought is spared for the title, keywords and abstract. However, the title, abstract and keywords are the three most decisive factors which play a pivotal role in communicating the crucial part of the research paper to the readers and editors. Most often, the title of the research paper functions as the sole factor which influences the decision of the reader on whether to read or skip the particular paper. While deciding the title of the paper, the very important thing that we should keep in our mind is that the title will be read by thousands of people. However, some of them will read the entire paper, but many people will read the title either in the journal table of content where it is published, or as a primary source, or in the bibliography or reference list of another research paper as a secondary literature source. Therefore, the words in the title should be selected with a great care and their association with one another must be carefully managed. Another important thing is the indexing and abstracting. As I said that the indexing services such as Google Scholar, Scopus, Web of Science, SCI, they segregate paper as per the title. So these services depend heavily on the accuracy of the title. These are computerized systems. Like somebody has written a paper in referred journal, then Google Scholar or Scopus or ResearchGate search engines identify these papers and list them appropriately. So in that case, an improperly titled paper may be lost somewhere or will never reach to the intended audience. So the special attention must be given to frame the title. We can have multiple revisions of the paper title. So suppose we have decided some title at the start of writing the manuscript. Over the period of time, we have more understanding about the subject and then we can refine the title. After that, we will see what are effective titles. Here I will share some important tips for writing the effective titles. As far as the length of the title is concerned, the title should not be too short. However, it should certainly communicate the main highlights of the paper. On the other hand, the title should not be too long. Not too short, not too long. The title should almost never contain abbreviations, chemical formulas, proprietary names. Proprietary names means names of the product, service registered by its owner as a trademark and not used by any other without the permission. Those are called like the proprietary names. Jargons. Jargons means terminologies that may be difficult for readers from other field to understand, and so on. This should not be included in the title. But if for some reason commonly used abbreviations can be used in the title, but these abbreviations should be immediately defined in the abstract, not in the title, but in the abstract. In designing the title, author should ask how I would look for the information in the index. That means, suppose you are designing title for your own paper, so how you will find out that particular paper through the search engine. What you will write to search that paper, that we should have in our mind. Accordingly, you can decide the title. The meaning and order of the words in the title are of importance to the potential reader. I repeat, meaning and order of the words in the title are of importance to the potential reader who sees the title in the journal of table of content, but these considerations are equally important to all the potential users of the literature, including those who become aware of the paper via secondary sources. Suppose I am looking for a paper. So what is the general procedure for looking up the paper? I will go on the publisher website, say IEEE or elsewhere or Science Direct. Then I will write the area or the topic which I am looking for. Then I will get the list of papers there related to that topic. That is one way of looking the paper. The other way is that I am reading one paper, and in that paper I find that this topic is really important and this topic is explained in a very well manner in the reference given here. So I look for the reference in the same paper. So how I am finding the paper? I am finding the paper directly going to the website and looking the table of content. This is one way. And the other way of looking the paper is through the bibliography of another paper. Thus, the title should be used as a label accompanying the paper itself, and it also should be in the form suitable for the machine indexing system. Therefore, the author must provide right keys to the paper when labeling. That is, terms in the title should be limited to those words that highlight the significant content of the paper in terms that are both understandable and retrievable. One of the most common errors in the defective titles and certainly be the most damaging term of the comprehension is the faulty syntax. Misarrangement of the words in the title. If there is a misarrangement of words in the title, the meaning will be completely changed. So let us avoid this faulty syntax. Undoubtedly, the most excessively long titles contains waste of the words. Try to avoid waste words. What are these waste words? The, and, then, or, also. These are the waste words. Suppose we are writing a paper with investigations on, observations on, studies on. We write article there. So these articles should be avoided, like a, and, the. These should be avoided because these are not useful in indexing the paper or searching the paper. So these articles should be avoided. The main function of the title is to provide concise summary of the research. Therefore, the title should be brief and clear. One should use active verbs and avoid complicated noun-based phrases. A lengthy title will distract readers' attention away from the important aspect of the research. The title should also be able to convey the non-expert the gist of article. Suppose somebody from the other field is reading the title is included in the paper. Non-expert should also get the idea of the paper. Ideally, the title should be written after one has completed writing the main article and has developed an in-depth knowledge and understanding of the article content. This will help in writing the clear, concise, and scientific title. The title generally should not exceed 150 characters. Here I'm giving the number of characters or number of words that can be used. The title generally should not exceed 150 characters or 12 to 15 words. However, the instructions to the author from the specific journal should be followed. The title should be as specific as possible and include some of the keywords that listed in the manuscript. It should accurately reflect. However, there are no such standard guidelines for writing. Nowadays, there are professional agencies which help you to structure your paper. You need to pay some amount to them. They will help you to restructure the paper and they will also improve the English of your paper. Seeking the guidance from these professional agencies can help to write the title in more effective way. But the best judge of the paper would be the author. That is, you are the only person who know what is included in the paper and what should be the title of the paper. One final point about the effective title is, if you don't know or if you are not getting any idea what should be the title, you can follow this. The last statement: include what, how, with whom, and where. This format can be used as a rough guide for writing the title. What is there in the paper and how it is done. The other two terms can be excluded in case there is a word constraint, but what and how can be included in the paper, and depending upon that the title can be framed. And most importantly, there is no full stop at the end of the title. There is no full stop at the end of the title. So when we talk about the effective titles, it should not be too short, not too long. It will not have any abbreviations, but well-known abbreviations can be included, but these are defined in the abstract. It highlights the significant content of the paper, no full stop at the end. 150 characters or 12 to 16 words, and what, how, with whom and where can be used to decide the effective title. So this is about the effective title. Let us move to the next part, that is author. Basically, who is said to be the author of paper? In short, the scientific paper should list only those who have contributed substantially to the work. In other words, an author of the paper should be defined as one who takes intellectual responsibility for the research results being reported. Also, we can define authorship by saying that the listing of authors should include those and only those who actively contributed to the overall design and execution of the experiment. Further, the author should normally be listed in the order of importance to the experiment. The first author is being acknowledged as the senior author. Senior author means the one who has carried out the complete process, research process. The second author is the private, and the third author possibly being equivalent to the second, but more likely having a lesser involvement or contribution with the work reported. The last author is generally the supervisor or guide. Colleagues, friends, peers should never ask to have their names on the manuscript reporting research without any direct involvement in the work. Each listed author should have made an important contribution to the study being reported. When I say important refers to those aspects of the study which produced new information, the concept that defines an original scientific paper. The author who takes primary responsibility for communication during the entire publication process is the corresponding author. Just now when I was explaining the structure of the paper, I indicated the corresponding author which was marked by star. So corresponding author, what is the role of corresponding author? He has to ensure compliance with administrative requirements of the journal. He may delegate the work to one or more co-authors but take responsibility for the same. The corresponding author should be available throughout the publication process to respond to editorial queries in a timely way. That is the role of corresponding author. If I want to explain this process by an example, I can just quote it here. Suppose that researcher A proposes an experiment that might result in important new knowledge. Then that researcher A explains the experiment to the technician B about exactly how to conduct that experiment and how to measure the readings at regular interval. If the experiments work out and the manuscript results, that means paper is written, researcher A should be the only author for the paper. Even though the technician did all the work, but he will be not included as author. Of course, his name will be included in the acknowledgement because he is not contributing to generate new knowledge. He has just collected the data and given it to the researcher A. The second case. Now let us consider that the above experiment did not work out and technician B takes the negative results to the researcher and says something like that. I think we got these results due to some mistakes in the experiment. If we go for some modifications in the experiment, then we can get some good or desired expected results. Then the researcher A agrees for the trial for the experiment. This time the desired outcomes are obtained and the paper results. In that case, the researcher A and the technician B should both be included as authors, because now technician also has given some critical inputs and he has also added some value to the paper. That's why both should be included as authors. Third case. Now take this example to next step further. Suppose the experiment with the modifications suggested by the technician B is over, but the researcher A observes that the results are showing very less improvement in the experimentation compared to the theoretical results. So he contacted researcher C and asked him to check and verify the experiment. Researcher C seems out to be the expert in the field. So researcher C runs a quick test and confirms the result. After that, one or two statements are added in the manuscript and the paper is, but now it is published with the researcher A and technician B as authors, and researcher C will be acknowledged in the acknowledgement. The contribution of researcher C is noted in the acknowledgement. The fourth case, suppose the researcher C finds a new way of doing the same and carries new experiment which led to the new conclusions. Then two or more tables and figures are added in the manuscript and the results and discussions are rewritten in the paper. Then the published paper will list researcher A, technician B and researcher C as authors. So this way we have to decide whom to include in the author list and whom to include in the acknowledgement. Now, as far as the name of the author is concerned, writing the name of author is the first name, middle initial and last name. Suppose I am the author, then I should write my name as Ravindra K. Munje. Ravindra K. Munje. It is the preferred way of writing. R.K. Munje is also a way of writing. But there are some problems. Now, what are these problems? I will tell you. If I write only Ravindra Munje, there can be other peoples with the same name. But with the different initials, if I add initial in that, people may have different initials. Ravindra Munje can be two or more people, but Ravindra K. Munje, very less people may be there. So preferred way of writing is Ravindra, that is first name, middle initial and the last name. Sometimes we also write R.K. Munje. That is also a preferred way of writing R.K. Munje because there may be very less people with the R.K. Munje. But if I write my complete middle name, in that case, it may have or the people may have with the same name again. So there will be a confusion in indexing and abstracting. So as I said that indexing and abstracting is a computerized method. So they will match the name or the title and depending upon that they segregate. Last 6 months back, I found that in my research account, some more papers were added because the name of the author was Munje. So he was other Munje, but he was included in my list, understanding that I am the author of that paper. So we need to write. Author should be written as Ravindra K. Munje or R.K. Munje. Another way is do not write degrees or scientific journals do not print degrees. No need to write Dr. Ravindra Munje, Dr. R.K. Munje, or no need to write Professor R.K. Munje. Simply write Ravindra K. Munje or R.K. Munje. They do not publish your degrees. Most of the times I have seen many papers writing that name of the name of the author and comma they write ME student, students, and then they write the name of guide, doctor something and the PG guide. That is also not required. If I am having a PG student under me, suppose he is Pankaj Gautam, then he can write Pankaj Gautam, comma Ravindra Munje. That's it. No need to write Pankaj Gautam, PhD student, Ravindra Munje, guide. Nothing is required for that. So straight way of writing is Pankaj Gautam, comma Ravindra Munje. That's it. No need to write professor, doctor, associate professor, PG scholar, research scholar. Nothing is required. So preferred way of writing the author is Ravindra Munje, Ravindra K. Munje, R.K. Munje. That's it. And wrong ways of writing is Dr. R.K. Munje, Professor R.K. Munje, Ravindra Munje, comma, Associate Professor Ravindra Munje, something like that. That is not required. So please keep this in mind when you are writing the authors. Then what are the responsibilities of the author? As we have seen, whom to be selected as author and whom to be selected in writing the acknowledgement part. What should be the way of writing the author name? That important point that we need to see is what is the responsibility of author. These are the several responsibilities of the author. Originality. When I say originality, the idea on which the work is done has to be original. And if not so, then the source of data must be acknowledged and presented in the paper. The work should not be submitted to multiple journals simultaneously. There should be a complete respect for and adherence to the copyright laws. Adequate permissions must be taken before producing any article or its part thereof. Suppose you are taking any diagram or figure from any other paper, it should be appropriately cited. You should not use it directly. That is originality. Conflict of interest. Conflict of interest refers to the situation where there is a potential of personal or professional interest influencing the research outcomes or publication. These may include, but not restricted to, financial interest with the industry, consultancy, share, employment, etc. The conflict of interest must be disclosed to the editor and the readers, saying that there are no conflict of interest among the authors. Honesty and transparency. The authors should ensure that the data and its interpretation are presented honestly and without fabrication or manipulation. It is not uncommon to hide findings that cannot be explained or which differ from other findings of the paper. This is strongly discouraged. All the findings must be presented, and if a finding cannot be explained, then the same must be stated. Suppose you got results which are negative, then do not hide them. If the experiment is done in a right way, explain why you are getting the negative results. All the sources of findings must be revealed, and also the role of each sponsor must be explained precisely. The author should the author must also make sure that contributions are duly acknowledged, and only those individuals who fulfill the criteria are author. I will show the example for this, but at the end of this session, because if I open the file again, I will have to share the slide. And fourth one is responsibility. The authors have to ensure that they are willing to take a complete public responsibility for the authenticity of their paper. Sometimes when our name is included in the paper and we don't have any contribution in that time, if you go for any higher position interview, they may ask you questions about that paper. That time you cannot say that I am not having any contribution in that paper. I don't know what is that, because that is your paper. Your name is listed there, so they can ask you questions related to that. So you should be able to answer that. So author have to ensure that they are willing to take complete public responsibility for the authenticity of their paper. They have to also ensure that due permissions are taken and registrations are done for the research project. The comply with the standard and statutory ethic throughout the study and publications. For some of the experiments, permissions are required from the government agencies, government authorities, or labs, or some R&D organizations or from R&D industries, those permissions should be taken before sending the paper for the publication. Otherwise, there may be problem. So these are the duties of the author. Now, author affiliations and addresses we will discuss here. The rule for listing the affiliation and address are simple. With one author, one address is given. That is okay. That is the name and address of the laboratory in which the work was done. Suppose I am writing as author, so Ravindra K. Munje, and the affiliation will be Department of Electrical Engineering, KK Wag Institute of Engineering Education and Research, Nasik 422003, India. That's it. And email address. That should be the author affiliation. Don't write associate professor, comma, electrical department, comma, name of institute, complete address. That is not required. Just write down your name, department, then your institute address and email address. PIN code is important so that you can get letters if required. So this way you can write the address. And suppose if I am working with some other organization, suppose I am pursuing PhD and I am also associated with the organization, then I can write that currently working as a PhD scholar at so and so organization. That can be stated. That can be listed. So your current address must be mentioned, apart from where you are a regular faculty or regular employee, that should also be listed. So if before the publication the author has moved to different address, the new address should be indicated in a present address as a footnote, right? So that can be done. If two or more authors are listed, each in a different institution, if somebody is from one institution and somebody is from other institution, then the addresses should be written in a respective manner. The first name, second name, then first address and second address. Primary problem arises when the paper is published by 3 authors from 2 institutions. In such instances, author names are written at the top, and below that you need to write the addresses. Then the author, after the author name, you can write subscript ABC, and the same subscript can be written here at the beginning of the address. That also I will indicate, or I will show you at the end of this session how to write. So in appropriate sequence that can be written. Remember that an address serves 2 purposes. It serves to identify the author. There may be 2 or more authors. Suppose R.K. Munje or Ravindra K. Munje. There can be another person with the same name, but the address will be different. So address helps to identify the person. Here you can see at the top I have shown the link of IEEE Explore with my name. So there they have mentioned that also published paper with these names: Ravindra K. Munje, Ravindra Munje, R.K. Munje. Because the affiliation is same, they have listed all these papers with the same affiliation under my name. Right? So the address serves 2 purposes. The first one is it used to identify the author with the same name, and also supplies author's mailing address. Mailing address is necessary for many reasons. The most common is being to send the journal reprints. So if the paper is published in the journal, they can send a copy to you on your email address, mailing address, postal address. So for that reason, postal address is required. So as far as the address is concerned, we need to write the name of the department, name of the lab where we are working, name of the institution, PIN code and country, and email address. That is important for writing the author details, affiliations. And also we have seen how to write the author names. Again, I repeat, no need to write doctor, professor, senior professor, or PG student, research scholar. Research scholar can be written in the address detail, but not in the author title, author list. So this should be avoided. So this is about the author details. I will show you some examples, but at the end of this session. Now let us move to the introduction part. Now, as we have completed writing the title and author details, we can go ahead. The next step is to write an abstract. But abstract and in fact the title are generally written at the end of the manuscript. However, we should have a provisional title in our mind when we are writing the paper, and also we should have some outline for the paper. Otherwise, we will go in many directions. That's why we discuss the title. We can call it as a draft title. We will refine this title once again when we finish writing the important parts of the manuscript. It is actually good to start writing the paper while the work is still in progress. Now, last two sessions we talk about the research and research writing terms. Last session we talk about the assignment based on identifying the research problem. This session onwards we will be writing our own paper. And as I have communicated on WhatsApp group, this week you will have to write your title, paper title, authors, author affiliations, author details, and the introduction part. Right, so here, as it is mentioned that the work of writing the manuscript should begin when we start our experiment. It is not the case when our experiment will over, that time I will start writing. Writing is a continuous process. So it is good to start writing the paper while the work is still in progress. So if you start writing from this week, definitely we will have some 2-3 versions of your paper. So you start writing paper from today itself. This makes writing easier because everything is fresh in the mind. Further, the writing process itself is likely to point to contradictions in the results or may result in the interesting sideline that might be followed. Thus, start writing while the experimental apparatus and materials are still available. So when we are doing experiments, as soon as we get results, we should write paper. We should not wait for the complete results to get and then to write. Simultaneously start writing. If you have co-authors, it is again better to write the work while they are still available with you for the discussion. The first section of the paper is the introduction. The introduction is the most frequently read part of the research paper next to the title and abstract. Readers often decide to continue further or not after going through the introduction of the paper. If you succeed to convince the reader that your paper is worth reading, the role of the introduction is over. So if you convince somebody is reading your paper, and if your language or if your introduction is so convincing that he will read the complete paper, then your objective of writing the introduction is over or satisfied. The purpose is to communicate that what you are addressing an important question. Editors could only form an opinion on the importance of your work by reading the introduction. So when you send your paper to the editor, he will read title, abstract and introduction. Then only he will go for sending your paper for the review. Otherwise, immediately he will reject the paper. If the editor is satisfied that your work addresses an important unanswered question, your manuscript most likely would go for the peer review. So when we are writing introduction, need to identify or focus 3 important points. When we are writing introduction, we need to identify or focus 3 important points. These are nothing but we can call it as 3 subsections without headings, because in the introduction part we don't have any subheading. Introduction is the main heading. We don't have any subheading in the introduction. So these are the 3 subsections without heading. What are these subsections? Introduction, establish a territory, establish your background, establish a niche, and occupy the niche. That means identify the gap and fill that gap with your problem, with your contribution. Background, identification of the gap, and filling the gap. So establish a territory to provide the background information to allow the readers to understand and evaluate the results of the present study without needing to refer to the previous publication of the topic. So whatever problem you are addressing, that background should be discussed here. Readers should not go for understanding that background from another paper or from another textbook. They should get the clear-cut idea from your introduction only. Otherwise, somebody is reading your paper and he is not getting what is the background, then he will read some textbook, then he will lose interest in reading your introduction and reading your paper. So here you need to provide the background information to allow the reader to understand and evaluate the results of the present study without needing to refer to the previous publication of the topic. To provide, what is the purpose of this subsection again? It is to provide the foundation or the basis or the rationale for the present study. What is the basis? Why it is important to study this paper part? What is the condition or the phenomenon investigated? How important or relevant it is? That should be covered in this part. Establish a territory. What are the main points here? We need to bring out the importance of the subject, make general statements about the subject, present an overview of current research on the subject. So that should be included in the first paragraph. Second paragraph is establish a niche. Which aspect of the condition or the phenomenon is your finding, is your focus? What is known and what is not known about the aspect? That is a literature survey. Critical literature survey should be written here. And through that critical literature survey, you need to identify a gap. What is the gap there? We need to oppose the existing assumptions, theories, or some experiments. What was wrong in that, or what could have been in a better way? What could have been done in a better way? What mistakes they have done? That should be mentioned here. And that after that you need to identify the research gap. And with that research gap, you need to identify a research problem. So this is the research gap, and that this gap is to be addressed by this research problem. This gap is to be filled with the research problem. And third section is occupying the niche. That means occupy this gap, research gap, with your own contribution. So how you are going to provide solution to this problem, which is the best solution to this problem. So what was the question? The study was designed to answer what? So you need to sketch the intent of the work, your own work, to state briefly and the purpose of writing your paper. What is the purpose of writing your paper? How you are going to fill this gap? Outline the important characteristics of the work. Outline important results. It's not necessary. It's not actually required to discuss complete results. You just need to provide the brief idea about the results. And finally, you need to give the brief outline of the paper. What is given in the paper, or the structure of the paper, or the organization of the paper. So this is about the structure of the introduction part. What is the structure? Structure is having three main paragraphs. It can be more than that, but generally it can have three paragraphs. The first paragraph can talk about the background of the problem that you are addressing. Then second paragraph will be a critical literature review and identifying the gap. And third paragraph will be how you are going to fill that. What are the characteristics of your work? How you are going to address it? What are the important results? And then fourth paragraph you can add as the organization of the paper, that is give the brief outlook of the structure of the paper, that can also be added. So this way you need to structure your introduction. So we have seen what is the structure and what should be included in that introduction part. That is given here. I will explain this with the example, but again at the end of this presentation. So introduction. The suggested rules for writing a good introduction are discussed in this slide. What are the suggested rules? The introduction should present the nature and the scope of the problem investigated. So how much you are going to address? Suppose we have identified the problem. So to what extent we will be addressing the problem? It should review the pertinent literature to orient the reader. Pertinent literature means relevant literature related to the topic. That is second paragraph. It should state the method of the investigation. Suppose you are discussing the literature review, that time also you need to discuss the method of the others. It should state the principal results of the investigation. So what was their outcome? Others outcomes, and how, and it should state the principal conclusions suggested by your results. So this should be included in the introduction part. How much background information should be provided in the introduction and how it should be structured are two important points to ponder. How much background information should be provided in the introduction and how it should be structured are two important points to ponder. First, you should set the context. That is, what is the current situation, condition you are talking about and how important it is. If it happens to be a very common one, do not bore the reader with the information that everybody knows. When you are talking about the background, do not write about the theory or concept or the information which is already known to the people, because they can anyway they can read it from other sources. That is not the purpose of your paper. So if something is known to the general community or the people in the field, don't include that part in the background. Don't add that text into the background. So what is to be included there? What is the current situation, condition you are talking about and how important it is, that should be included in the background. Having stated what you are talking about, proceed straight to the heart of the problem. Explain what is the significant issue that is of interest to you. This is very essential. If there is no such a thing, you would be no justification for undertaking a study in the first place. So you need to talk about directly on the problem. What is the problem? So if there is no problem, then why you are writing the paper? So you need to directly start writing about the problem. And this is the main part. And here the real test of author is in writing this part. How to write literature survey. We need to compare some part. We need to write contrasting statements, conflicting ideas. And from that we need to identify the gap. So this is the real test of author, how to write this part. And this is mostly done in the technical terms. And to make them understand, appreciate the same. That is very important. The readers should appreciate your literature review. Place the points one by one in front of the reader, validating and verifying them with the appropriate, carefully selected, up-to-date references. So every statement that you say, that you comment, should have some proof, the up-to-date reference. In the process, make it explicitly clear to the reader what is the problem while the existing literature on the issue. This should be written in such a language and detail that even non-specialist readers can understand and appreciate the problem without much difficulty. Finally, end the introduction by saying what you intend to fill the knowledge gap and how to resolve conflicting data or expert viewpoints. While doing so, slightly hint at the merit of your current investigation. So you will also have to talk about what are the merits of your work, what are the novelties in your work, what are the benefits of your work. That also should be included in the introduction part. At the same time, take care not to be arrogant, because you cannot directly say that the work done by so and so author is wrong. You need to justify it. You need to prove it. You cannot directly say that the experiment done by this researcher or experiment done in this paper is wrong. But you need to prove it, justify it, then only you can say like that. So take care not to be very arrogant in that. So this is introduction, purpose of the introduction, rules for the introduction. Now let us see some important tips while writing the introduction part. Now these are some important tips that you should consider when you are writing your own introduction part. What are these tips? The first tip is that when you are writing the background, the initial part, the first paragraph of your introduction, refer to the latest research papers. Don't refer the old papers published 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So to provide the most important background information, refer to the latest research papers, latest articles. Suppose if we are writing today onward, you should select papers from 2020, 2019 and max 2018. Now while writing the background part, most often people cite the survey paper in the field. So try to cite a survey paper or review paper or overview paper in your field. Also you can cite the reports of the national and international agencies. There are some national and international agencies, they publish reports every year. Those reports and the analysis given in the report can help us to write this background part. So try to refer these articles and reports in the introduction part. This is the first tip. Second is, much of the introduction should be written in the present tense. So the introduction should be written in the present tense because we will be referring materials primarily to your problem and establish knowledge relating to it at the start of your work. So this introduction should be written in the present tense. Then refer to the guidelines of the journal for writing the introduction. This is a very important part because generally we write paper and later we decide to send it to some X journal, and after reading the guidelines we need to restructure the introduction. In fact, we need to restructure the complete paper. So that's why I gave the first assignment on selecting or identifying 5 most important journals in your area or 5 most important conferences in your area. The purpose was that after going through the guidelines of the author of those journals, you will be aware of what to be included in the introduction part. So this is very important. Refer the guidelines of the journal for writing the introduction. Because they can say that the word length is something like that, word limit is there, or include this part, include that part. So it is better to go or refer the guidelines of the journal before writing the introduction part. Then fourth tip is cite at least 2-3 papers from the journal where you are submitting your paper. Suppose I am writing a paper for IEEE transactions on control system technology, and I am writing the introduction. In that case, I must cite at least 2 to 3 papers from that journal, particular journal, IEEE transactions on control system technology. Why that is required? It is required to establish or to state that the paper, our paper, is within the scope of the journal, because the topics related to our paper are already published in the journal and it is within the journal scope. That's why it is very important to cite the papers from the journal, same journal where we are submitting the paper, and those should be the latest publications, latest articles, not very old. So that is the fourth tip. Then fifth one is, while writing the literature review part, we need to talk about 2 or more points. Suppose I'm talking about developing some algorithm system, like developing some machine learning algorithm for. Now here there are 2 points we need to consider. The one point is about the algorithm, the other point about the system. So when we are writing the literature survey, we need to go as per the technical advancement of the algorithm, also the technical advancement about the system. Suppose it is the application of machine learning algorithm in fault identification. Let us consider the title of the paper is application of some machine algorithm for the fault identification. So when I am writing the literature review, I can have 2 types of literature. Either I should see application of the same machine learning algorithm to some other systems, and I can discuss that part. Second part will be identification of second part will be writing literature review for that particular system where other methods are applied for the fault identification. Are you getting my point? I am talking about algorithm and system. So I need to refer literatures related to algorithm separately and the system separately, and then the combination of that. So in this case, it is very difficult to write literature survey. So what should be included first? Whether I should talk about the system first or whether I should talk about the algorithm first. So in that case, you need to take a call depending upon the topic and its advancement. So you can initially talk about the machine learning algorithm, how it has evolved and how it has been applied to some other fault identification methods, and then how it is extended to the problem that we have considered here. This is one way of doing this. Other way is you start with the system. What are other methods that are used for identifying the fault in that system? Then how machine learning has evolved and how machine learning is now applicable for this system. So that you need to understand whether to go this way or whether to go that way. So that you need to understand, and depending upon that you need to write the literature survey. Maybe we will talk more about this in the next session. I will show you some examples how they are written, and also we will see how to write literature survey, because survey is not just writing what is given in the paper. Literature survey is about evaluating what is given in the paper, what are the shortcomings of the paper, and how you are going to address those shortcomings in your paper. So that is about the literature survey. This part is very important when you are writing the paper. As I said, the editor will first read the title, second abstract, and third he will read the introduction and literature review part. Then he may reject your paper immediately without sending it to the reviewers. So this is very important part, and these tips should be carefully noted when you are writing your introduction part. What is the first tip? Provide the latest or use the latest articles, journal articles. Then write in the present tense. refer to the guidelines for the journal, then cite 2-3 papers from the journal where you are submitting the paper, then cite survey paper or government reports or national and international agency reports, and writing literature review as per the problem statement. So these are very important points that we need to consider when we are writing the introduction part of the paper. Again, there are some don'ts that we have to consider when we are writing the literature review. What are these don'ts? Lengthy. Although there is no strict word limit for introduction, the shorter the better. The introduction should not exceed a page of 3 paragraphs or about 300 words. As I said initially, introduction should have 3 paragraphs. Introduction should have 3 paragraphs and around 300 words. Introduction should have 3 paragraphs and about 300 words. Just a moment, there was some problem. Okay, so avoid being unduly lengthy. Although there are no strict word limits for introduction, the shorter is the better. Expert advise that the introduction should not exceed a page of 3 paragraphs or more than 300 words. The main idea of the paper should be comprehensive yet concise. This balance is improved by multiple drafts. So when you are writing introduction for the first time, maybe there are some problems, maybe it is not very clear, but you need to refine it. So if you go for the multiple revisions, definitely the introduction part will be improved. So that's why I'm telling you, you start writing the introduction part from today itself, so that we can have the multiple revisions of the same and we can improve the content in the introduction part. So the balance is improved by multiple drafts. Initially beginning with the well-reasoned introduction that says whatever you have to say. Then by chopping off redundant points, sentences and words without losing continuity and clarity. The final version is one where every word is essential for conveying the intended meaning. Second, do not confuse the introduction with the discussion. Do not part there. Discussion part, we have a separate section where we can write. Often the introduction and the discussion section of the manuscript read alike, saying the same thing all over again. This should be avoided at any cost. Try to tell only the gist of the existing literature in the introduction and avoid going behind the intricacies of the individual studies which are better dealt with the discussion. Third, subheadings are customarily not used in the introduction. Subheadings could be used in the another part of the manuscript, but not in the introduction part. Don't use subheadings. It has only one main heading, that is introduction. Another common mistake is to let loose some of the results in the introduction, which is strictly forbidden. Don't discuss about the results. You can just give the clear-cut idea about the results and expected outcomes, but don't discuss the results. Finally, if your work is focused on a particular area while writing introduction for a series of related papers, there is ample chance for copying your own words. Suppose you are pursuing your PhD and you are writing papers on the similar topics. Suppose it is about the fault identification with the method 1, fault identification with the method 2, fault identification with the method 3, and you are writing the papers. It may happen that you will copy the introduction part from each paper. So don't do that. That is called as text cycling. Avoid text cycling. So if you are writing paper on particular area in the form of series, there is a chance that you copy your own words. This should also be avoided. This should be avoided as much as possible. Finally, brevity, clarity, and direction are the hallmark of the good introduction. Apart from its intended role of conveying why the study was undertaken, the introduction reflects the style of writer and set the tone of the paper. Again, I repeat that introduction reflects the style of the writer and sets the tone of the paper. A well-written introduction goes a long way in impressing the editors, reviewers, and readers. After all, the first impression is the best impression. One more point I forgot to mention in case of writing tips, that is, there has to be some logical sequence. There has to be some logical sequence between the paragraphs. You don't jump between the paragraphs. Here, when I was talking about the writing tips, one important tip I forgot to mention that there has to be some logical sequence between the paragraphs. Do not jump from one paragraph to another paragraph, one concept to another concept, one method to another method immediately. There has to be some logical sequence. Why you are going from this point to another point? Why you are referring this paper to another paper? Why you are talking about this paper to another paper? There, the logical sequence has to be followed. The transition of ideas should be in a correct way. So that is one important tip I forgot to mention here. So again, I would like to state here that the introduction reflects the style of the writer and sets the tone of the paper, and well-written introduction goes a long way in impressing the editors, reviewers, and readers. After all, the first impression is the best. Then here we have come to the end of this session. Summarizing today's session, we have covered what is scientific research paper, the structure of research paper, how to select the title of the paper. Also, we covered how to decide the authorship of the paper and how to write the author affiliation and address. Later, we talk about the very important part of the research paper, that is introduction, writing introduction. In that, we have seen the structure of introduction part, the purpose of introduction, and the important do's and don'ts. Finally, we discuss, I will discuss this with the example. Just a moment. Let me finish this. Then I will discuss this. In this session, we discuss with the actual process of writing the research paper. We begin with the title, author, and affiliations and introduction. We will see other parts of the research paper in the upcoming sessions. The next week, we will plan to discuss some important points related to the introduction with some examples. Apart from that, we will discuss how to write the main contribution to the paper. This main contribution means your theoretical discussion, mathematical modeling, software and hardware implementation. That point we need to keep in mind. What point we need to keep in mind while doing this? How for that? And all these vital points we will discuss next time. So the next time session will be again very important. Please do not miss it. These are some of the references for today's session. These are very limited references. There is a huge material, study material available on writing and publishing research paper. These are selective or representative references. The quiz for this session will again include 10 MCQ type questions, and the assignment will have 3 questions. For these 3 questions, you will have to submit the typical answers, type answers, either in the PDF or Word file. Preferably submit your answers in the Word file so that we can provide comments in the Word file directly. In the same way that we have submitted for the assignment 2, if you are facing any problem in uploading the assignments, you can write us on the WhatsApp. Assignment 3 is posted assuming that you have completed assignment 2, because all the assignments, again I repeat, will be carried out in a sequential manner to write our own paper. So please complete all the assignments seriously and sincerely. With these efforts, I'm sure at the end of this course, you will be able to have your own paper in your hand. The assignment questions for this week are here. The first question is to write the title for your research paper. This can be a draft title. Frame the title considering all the points that we have discussed in the session. Assignment question. The next assignment question is to write author and author details for your paper. Again, take care of the points that we have discussed in writing the author details and arranging the sequence of authors. Again, this can be the draft sequence when you will carry out your work. That time you will understand who is actually contributing to your paper to the greater extent and who is assisting you. Depending upon that, you can arrange the sequence of author. However, important point you need to note down is that don't disclose this sequence of author to the main authors because there may be some conflict. Otherwise, you can disclose it once your manuscript is ready at the end. The last question is write an introduction to your paper. It should be in 3 paragraphs again, as we have discussed, up to 300 words. Refer to the latest articles. Refer at least one report of the national or international agency or survey paper. 10 other papers. Contribution of the journal's paper should be more. Paragraph 1 should be on the background. Paragraph 2 on the literature review. Paragraph 3 on problem identification, your own solution. Sketch your work and expected results. Finally, write the organization of paper and then submit all these answers in the form of one PDF or Word file. So this is about the assignment. Now let me show you the introduction. Let me show. My screen is visible. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible.
Okay. Okay. This is the paper that we will see the introduction part of this paper. I will not read the complete introduction part, but I will just highlight some points here. This first paragraph is about the background. A modern day power system network experiences many problems such as the use of thermal generation and fossil fuels which produce pollution, are expensive and deplete fuel. The increasing demand of electrical power, depletion of available conventional resources, aging of transmission and distribution networks pose a considerable threat for the existing electrical power systems. So here they are setting the background for their paper. The complete background is discussed here. When we go ahead, here you can see this part, though DSTAT COM perform the voltage regulation and provides the active and reactive power at low voltage levels, it fails. See here, they have talked about the article number 10. What is given in the article number 10, that is given here, but it fails to protect the, what is the problem associated with that, that is also given here. So comment is also mentioned here. So what is the contribution of that paper and what is the problem that is mentioned here? DVR deals with the voltage edge compensation in series with the load 11. It also requires voltage compensation and additional energy storage capacitor transformer. UPQC consists of series and shunt controllers and it provides a common DC link voltage to the controller. The rating of the DC link voltage is not relevant because the shunt controller requires the high rating of DC link voltage. So this is given, and there is some problem here. To avoid this problem, solution is given in 14. So this way literature review is given. And here in this paragraph how they are going to solve this problem in the proposed system. What is proposed in this paper? The coordinated PQ theory and FOPID is implemented. Right? So what is the problem that is discussed in this section, and how that problem is solved is given in this part. That is the main contribution of this paper. A case study was conducted. So what is given, how it is carried out? A case study was conducted on IEEE 12 bus system and compared with the conventional method. So how it is, how the analysis or the carried out, that is given here. And finally, the organization of the paper, how paper is organized. So this way the introduction is written here. You can also refer to introduction for other papers in your area, how they have written it. Read at least introduction of 4 or 5 papers, then you can start writing your introduction part. So this is introduction part, and here you can see these are the author's name. Again I will show you some important points here, which here you can see competing interests, conflicting interests. What is that? The authors declare that they have no known competing financial interest, that is conflict of interest I talk about when I was talking about the author detail. So here they have mentioned there is no conflict of interest between the authors, and also they have mentioned what is the contribution of the author. Here Praveen Kumar Naidu, how he is contributing to the manuscript, and this another author, how they are contributing to the manuscript, that is also given here. So authorship contribution statement is also given here. Apart from that, these are the authors' names here, and this is affiliation. They are from the same institute, VIT University, Vellore, India, and corresponding author is marked with the star. So this is about the introduction. Here we have come to the end of this today's session. If you have any questions or queries, you can ask. I'm open for the questions.